Hello and welcome back to another video. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you might have already seen a custom on Breyer's Irish cob mold. While I still like that custom, I have come a long way since him, and I think it's time we give one of my favorite models another makeover. Of course, I love this model's mane and tail as is, but one of my favorite things about this breed is the insane amount of hair. Plus, it's extra great as a model when you don't have to actually take care of it. Also, as you may know, I really like sculpting hair. So before we make more hair, we must make less hair. Using my Dremel and a thin cutting disc, I take off the plastic. I'm wearing my respirator, glasses, gloves, and a long sleeve shirt. I'm trying to be careful and not damage the neck. Since it's fully sculpted, I won't have to do as much work. That is, if I don't accidentally cut it. This is by far the hardest mane removal yet. I have to go at such weird angles since it's going every which way. Next up is the tail. I cut what I could with the Dremel, but I needed to finish it by hand sawing since I wanted to save it for something else. Let this be proof that the hobby does make you exercise, more than just your patience. To clean up the rough edges, I use a sanding drum. To add the new mane and tail, I drill in holes for my wire armatures. Since the tail is going to be so big, I'm actually gluing in 2 base supports. Off camera, I let that dry and added some epoxy for even more strength. Now I can pose everything with pliers. I did make sure to draw a reference of what I wanted it to look like before doing anything, so I'm using that as a guide. Once they are where I like, I can start patting it out with masking tape as a base. Next, I add hot glue to bulk it up. Not too crazy, just to give it more of a 3D shape. I also use foil for areas that need more bulking. Just be careful because the glue does heat it up a little bit. Now that I have a good base, it's time to start adding the epoxy. I'm starting at the base so I can build over it and it flows more naturally. I smooth the larger noodles together with rubbing alcohol and my silicone tool. I am actually using Aves epoxy here, since I did this a while ago. I do slightly like the Magic Sculpt more for hair texture, but it's not a huge difference. This is just a little less smooth, but it does hold definition better. I blend and add more detailed hair with a cuticle tool. It's important to have defined separations, so it looks natural and not just like a block of hair with no movement. I do this in multiple sittings since it does take a while, and the epoxy starts to get too stiff to work with. I like adding lots of little hairs that come off, since it's really hard to mold these kind of shapes, but it's pretty easy to do if you're just customizing. Same for the tail, I start at the tip. I'm adding a piece coming off by covering a wire with epoxy and then sculpting the texture before putting it on. And with all that hardened, it's time for the primer. After this dries, I do any last-minute seam prep and get anything I missed that is visible now. I respray the primer, let it dry, and then it's time for paint. I want to do a rich dark bay. I will still need to make any light parts white first, so I can get the brightest colors. For him, this means his armpits and belly. I also do where he will have any white leg markings. Now I can add a burnt yellow over the white. Most of this will just be undertone for the darker colors. Now I can really get going with this reddish brown. You can see I have my color reference there on the phone. I did want to lighten these areas up even more since I went a little too dark initially. It's fine to do this, it's just not as effective as getting it right the first time. You also might have to do a few more layers. Next I can go in with the black and add more shading to the muscles and define the shapes. Here you can see my airbrush sputtered a little and got a black speck on a lighter part. Since I dry in between coats with a hairdryer, if I go quick I can get it off. I dab on some water to keep it from drying and then carefully remove it with my finger. Then I soak that all up with a paper towel. Sputtering can be caused by all sorts of things. I make sure to spray on a scrap first before going on the model, but it's bound to happen occasionally. I am pretty obsessive about cleaning between the colors. I even take the nozzle and needle out and rinse them with water each time, and I still get clogs. I think some of my paint has gotten dried out pieces in it over time. When that happens, I soak in acetone and remove it with a needle. Airbrushing this much hair texture is way easier than the hand painting. It can really get in those crevices. Once that was done, I let it dry for at least a day and then seal it with matte spray so it stays put while I handle it to add the details. First I will be adding anything that needs white, starting with the eye whites. I will fill in the black pupils later. While I'm at the head, I add this cute little white blaze. I'm using an off-white for the feathering since it would be a little dirty in real life. I thin the paint with water so I don't get brush strokes and do at least 5 coats to build up the color. I might have been better off just doing white first and then adding the beige. It would have covered the base a little faster since it's higher quality paint. Now I can get back to that eye. As promised, I add the pupils. Going back in gives the white a crisper edge and more control of the eye shape and size. For some deep brown eyes, I start with a dark brown ring. Then I blend in a lighter shade to the bottom. I go back and forth to build up the dimension. For these hooves, I add a layer of thin water so the white blends out. And I don't know guys, I must not have been in the mood to do hooves this day because I really don't know what is going on here. I'm trying to detail them and add striations. I promise I've gotten better since I did these. You can tell I cared more about that lifted leg since you might actually see that one. I actually just finished painting some hooves for an upcoming video that I'm really pleased with, so this is actually making me cringe a little. Definitely stay tuned for that one and maybe don't follow any of whatever just happened there. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite part of customizing is. I'm sure we all have one thing that we really dread, but also something we wish we could do every day. So that said, moving on to something I like doing a little more, the dapples. He's already sealed with a matte spray, so I can start blending on the black pastel with an eyeshadow brush. Once I have the area covered, I use my kneaded eraser to remove the pastel to create the dapples. I'm looking at reference since some dapples are different shapes and sizes. I do brush a little black back over the top to blend it. After one side was done, I sealed it and did the same on the next. I also blended the edges of these markings. I could have done this with the airbrush, but the pastel has a little more control and precision to help go with the flow of the hair. I sealed all that, and then I can go in with my paint pen to add the chestnuts. Off camera, I sprayed everything with a satin spray to give it a nice finish and make those colors really pop. With that dry, I can add the gloss. And with all that done, let's see the before and after. I think he looks so majestic with his new dew. The satin finish really helps all that texture stand out. I'm also really pleased with the way the dapples blend into the gradient. Solid bay can be a little simple sometimes, so I really wanted to spice it up. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. Make sure to boop that like button and subscribe for more projects.